Hello everyone, as you might have seen from the shorts, today I will be talking about one of the games, the advanced variation of the Caro-Kann. So I am a positional player, and with the black pieces, I tend to play the Caro-Kann defense, okay, against the e4 response. So let's start with the first move of this opening I went against an opponent, just keeping the initials of the letter out of respect, or of the name, sorry. And I put the rating here. I don't have a rating here because the idea is that my opponent here was a 2137 FIDE rating opponent. I believe that he ended up getting a title, candidate master, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure completely what's his current status is. But back then, I looked him up and he was 2137 FIDE rating, and I don't have a FIDE rating. That's why I don't have any numbers here next to my name. I haven't really played any official FIDE tournaments. So for that reason, I still wanted to show you this game because this was an online classical time control game where each player had 30 minutes on the clock. So it's a slower game compared to like rapid and things like that. So this was a classical format. Okay, so against e4, or in this case, I went for the Caro-Kann defense, which is c6, and after my opponent goes for d4, I just go for d5, okay? And my opponent went for the advanced variation, and here I have different responses. Nowadays, I've been playing c5, but at this time, back then, I was playing this line with bishop f5. And I studied a specific line in this opening, and I'm glad it happened here, and I'll talk a little more about that in a second. So knight f3, e6, and then bishop e2. In this position here, after bishop e2, I studied this line because I used to take lessons from a grandmaster, Julio Granda, and I remember he played this opening against a student, and he did really well. And I studied that opening, and it was after the bishop went to e2. So the common response here is that the bishop just goes here to d3, or sometimes like people try to, like before moving the knight here, you want to kick him out or something. But here, very, very frequent, you see the bishop here on d3. And you can just try to trade. You can try to, bring the bishop back or something. And it's all right because in the Caro-Kann, you have your pawns in the light squares. So you have a light square bishop, and it's okay if you just trade your bishop for the other bishop here, because you have harmony between your dark square bishop and your light square pawns, right? So your bishop is not getting stuck or just hitting your own pawns. So there's good harmony. So your dark square bishop in the Caro-Kann is really nice, and you can try to get rid of this bishop. Sometimes you have positions where you can just trade this bishop for the knight, and that's okay, So in this position, my opponent went for bishop e2, and I was like, oh, I've studied this line, so hopefully we can get to that sequence that I really like. And I just went for knight e7. Very common knight e7. Not really going for c5 yet, because they can give you a check or something. You have ideas of just like a6 or just developing the other knight. But I just went for this line. And I was hoping that my opponent was also going towards something that I really studied before. So after knight c3, I just went for h6. Okay, my opponent castled, and I just brought my bishop to h7. And you might be thinking, my opponent has developed all their pieces, or most of their minor pieces, and has castled already, and I just moved my two minor pieces. I might be losing, right? But that's the good thing about whenever you study certain games, you can go for certain ideas, and hopefully after I show you this game, you get some ideas as well for your own games. Okay. All right. So after bishop f4, all the minor pieces are developed and the king is castled. I just go for g5, and my opponent goes like they don't want to go back over there. So they try to keep, some stability. Probably at one point they want to do some pushes. I have this dark square bishop always looking at this e5 pawn, defending it or something, right? So here, I go for knight f5, already targeting the bishop. So here I can just win the bishop, and I would claim the bishop pair. And I can claim that I'm a little bit better just because I have the two snipers, right? So my opponent goes knight b1, and that was a little bit strange move, but at the same time it kind of makes sense because the knight is nice here on d2, and the idea is that you want to push this c4, this pawn to c4. You know, you want to go for some pawn breaks or something, and that's the problem sometimes when people like develop their knights here on c3 or like, you know, like on c6 or something, and then you don't have that pawn push. So it makes sense. Sometimes he probably realized, okay, I made a mistake. I should have just probably developed my knight here, although his bishop was here already, you know. But sometimes it's just nice to do like a c4 push and then bring the knight, you know. But here he was like, you know what, I made a mistake. Probably I'll have to just reroute and then go for this c4 push. But because of that, I had the time to go h5, you know. And the thing is, like, the knight here is on f3, so the bishop cannot just capture this pawn, right? And my queen is defending this pawn on g5. Okay, so he goes like, okay, h3. If you're not going to capture my bishop, I'm just going to bring my bishop back and you're not going to capture that. So I was like, okay, it's all right. I'm not going to take it yet. I go for this move, bishop h6. It looks a little bit funny and maybe not the most accurate, but because I studied this line, I was like, you know what? Let's just go for it. Because now he's thinking, oh, I can just save my bishop. And that's what he did. He went bishop h2. He said, you know what? You didn't take my bishop. You lost your opportunity. But I was like, okay, I'm fine with that. I go for g4. g4 is a nice push. If the knight moves or something, I can just break this pawn structure. If takes, I have my king just coming in. My rooks are going to like g8 or something. And I haven't committed my king yet. That's the idea. That's why I'm going for this attack, because they committed their king right away and I have not moved my king yet. So I have ideas of I can move my queen, things like that, my net, and I can always just castle long if anything, right? So g4 takes, and the knight moves. And that's the only square that I can move to, right, without getting taken. So if the knight moves here to h4, I can just capture it with a knight, with a queen. I can go for some ideas like that. So only square, knight d2. And here I go for this push, which is kind of nice. So I go for this push, g3, and there are two possibilities, right? What happens if they capture it with the bishop here on g3? Now you can just take this bishop here. If takes, you have certain ideas that you can capture here. Let's see, bishop e3. And then they would have to give up the exchange, right? Because if they move the king over here, I have a discovered check and things can go south, you know? So here probably the best move is just to bring the rook here. And you can try to capture here. There's some ideas of just capturing here on c2. Let's look it up. Let's see. So there's a line that says like bishop takes c2. If the queen takes here, then we have queen g5. And queen g5 is going towards this pawn. We're attacking this knight. So if this knight ever moves, you can always capture this. But the rook is pinned here, right? So things are very scary in this position, right? Because you have this takes here and then just the queen comes in. So you have that line if the bishop captures. But in this game, when I push g3, my opponent captured with the pawn. There you go. So f takes g3. And here you have to find this move. It's the only move that just wins the, I mean, it's a nice move. So it's bishop e3. And the best move here is for them to give up the exchange. So the same ideas, right? The same idea applies here. So they have to go for this move, rook f2, right? And then you can go for the sacrifice and things like that, right? Or give up the exchange at one point. You have still the lines that I'll be showing you soon. Naturally though, my opponent went with king h1. Natural move, they don't want to give up the exchange and lose like that. But here you have to find this brilliant move. Knight takes g3. Knight takes g3, it's an amazing move. Because you have to respond to this, right? Like the nice thing about this bishop here on e3, and it was the maneuver of bringing the bishop to h6 to then have this e3 square, is critical. because it's covering here in g1 and the king can never move here. And the bishop is here, you know, blocking the king from moving forward. So they have to capture. So in this position, my opponent resigned, but I will show you a few of the lines that could happen, right? So if bishop takes, then you have this bishop takes c2 with check. And it's a check because you're doing a discover check, attacking the queen with the bishop, but also attacking the king and giving a check to the king. So there's one of the lines that I believe is probably like the one that like delays everything and makes you win a queen or something. And it's this one here. If bishop h5, now you capture the queen, because now this light square bishop is pinned to the king, but now you can just capture the queen here. You capture the queen, and then if let's say the rook takes or something, now you have this, and here you can just take the bishop with the rook and then give a checkmate with the queen. I'll show it to you here. And remember that the bishop is always covering here in g1, right? So takes, and then you have a checkmate here. Okay. But a very common response in this position would be just they say, all right, I lost my queen, you know, because you're seeing this right away. Oh, discover check, and they're gonna win my queen. So they just block with the bishop. But we just saw in the previous line that here we don't even capture the queen here. We actually just take the bishop here on h2. And whenever the king takes, now we just have a checkmate here on h4 with the queen. And that's the idea of having this bishop here blocking g1. And just to like go back a little bit, and you may be thinking here in this position after they take here or something, or even, yeah, after they take with the pawn, you may be thinking, oh, I have a fork here with a knight. And that's fine too. That's still winning, you know, like knight e3, you can just fork the queen and the rook or something. But again, seeing these sequences now, you can think of like, oh, yes, I have a fork and I can probably win like that. But now this is in this position here already. Like this position after finding just g3, the position is like -5 or so. Although you have the same amount of pieces, black is, it looks like black has an extra rook or something, you know. But after this, you may be thinking, oh yeah, I can just fork him. But then sometimes it's nice to like look up like the sequences, right? And then the whole move here of bishop h6 is super nice because now you're gonna win the rook anyways, you know. So I hope you really like this game, and I'll be sharing more of these games on this playlist. And well, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, right? That helps a lot. That helps a lot, like creating more videos. And you can comment on the videos. I tend to respond right away to all the comments. If you have any questions, I'm always here to answer any questions that you have about certain positions. What about this line? What about this other line? You know, does this work or not? And some people might be thinking, oh, those questions are so obvious, but you know what? We're here to help each other. So, you know, I'm down for it. I'm down to help out in any way. Let's get better at this game together, you know. So if I have a little bit more, I guess not I don't want to say experience, but some knowledge about certain things, I'll try to help you with anything that I know. Okay, so I'll see you on the next video.